screen and
Okay,
taking
sure.
over mine. And what Julie's going to be talking with us today, I think it's very pragmatic and it's very interesting, is how to become an impactful QA engineer. And this is a question based on the conversations that I've seen that it's going to resound with many, many of the people here, either because they're engineers or they're managers and they want to help their team. So Julia, take it home.
All right, thank you so much. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the session on becoming an impactful QA engineer. I'm going to talk about how I grew into the role and the things that I learned. And then I'm going to share with you a roadmap or a learning path that you can use to also become an impactful QA engineer. Now, as was said before, I am from the beautiful island of Jamaica where it's sunny all year round. It is a really nice place to live. We have really great food, beautiful beaches, etc., all the things that I love. I'm currently the training and development manager at Qualityworks Consulting Group, and you can connect with me on different platforms. I'm on Twitter at iluge876. You can also follow my YouTube channel where I talk about test automation, WebDriver IO, and I dabble a bit in React and Material UI for web development. That is youtube.com/Julia Pottinger. And I also blog about this and other different topics at juliapottinger.com. I also have a course on Test Automation University on WebDriver IO that you can check out if you're interested in learning more about that framework. So let's first talk about what is a QA engineer. When I say this term, a lot of persons normally go straight to test automation, but I think a QA engineer is so much more than just someone that writes test automation script. You have to be involved in the planning, the implementation, and maintenance of quality for the organization and the product. You have to understand user requirements, you have to attend backlog, sprint planning, etc. You have to ensure that you're meeting business requirements, but you're also thinking about different users that need accessibility and usability, persons that are using screen readers. You have to think about security. It's not just test automation, it's understanding and having soft skills, ensuring that you are putting the quality of the product first. And to be an impactful QA engineer, you need to do all those things so that you're satisfying not just business requirements, but the customers that are going to use your application. You have to be an advocate for quality. You have to be an advocate for them. So if it is that the business logic or the business requirements don't involve accessibility testing, you have to champion that. You have to champion ensuring that the application are user-friendly, if they need captions, if they need alt text, if they're user-friendly to screen readers, is it performing well, does the site take long to load, etc. And in doing that, you're going to be impactful because you're going to allow your company to reach out to a wide variety of users that are really going to appreciate your efforts. Now, there are a lot of different skills that you will need to know in order to be impactful. And I'm going to jump through a bit of those, and then I'm going to start talking about the different things that you will need to learn. So the first thing is to understand Agile and QA processes, not just test automation, but in pointing stories. How are you advocating for QA time? Are you just pointing stories and thinking about the time it's going to take for the developer to do the ticket? Or are you saying, wait a minute, how long am I going to take to test the ticket? How long am I going to take to write test automation? How long is it going to take for unit tests to be done? And involve all of that in the process, understanding your role as a QA engineer and advocating for those things. And in release management, how do you check for test coverage and ensuring that there is traceability from requirements to what the developer is doing to what you are doing in your test automation or manual testing? And asking important questions, as I mentioned before, advocating for usability and performance and security. Asking those questions to have everyone thinking, are we implementing security in our payment screen? Are we ensuring that performance is there when we're loading big images on the screen? Is this color too shocking? Is it going to allow someone that is colorblind to not understand what is going on the screen, etc.? And you do all of this by communicating effectively, not just being harsh and uncaring and thinking that you're always right, by being open to learn and sharing with the members of your team. And then testing concepts and test execution. In order to be a proper QA engineer, you need to understand how to test, how to do exploratory testing, set up time boxes for what you're going to test, how to create proper test cases. And it doesn't have to be in the method of writing long steps, like I do this and then I do that. There are different tools like mind mapping that you can use to do user workflows to identify scenarios or gaps that you may be missing in your testing. And doing regression, understanding what you are going to be doing regression on, what you're going to be doing smoke testing on and sanity testing on, to ensure that each release that goes out is of a high quality. And then the 7 testing principle, understanding that testing is context dependent. So if you're testing an e-commerce platform versus testing some medical devices, the test cases and the scenarios that you're going to have to think about, they're going to be slightly different. And therefore, you have to condition your mind and learn how to adapt to those different environments and to ensure that you're testing properly. And in doing all of that, you have to understand what to automate if you decide what to automate. Automation is very important if you have a lot of things that you're going to be doing regression testing on. And as an impactful QA engineer, you need to understand what scenarios you're going to automate. If your project does not have proper locators or it's constantly changing, then it may not be the best project to start doing test automation on at the moment. But you can write down those things and advocate for better locators, more solid acceptance criteria that will ensure that the features aren't changing as much as they are currently. And then in test automation, you need to learn how to find locators. There is a great tool called Selectors Hub that you can check out if you have problem finding automated like locators, especially in XPath. It's really good for helping you to auto generate locators. But understanding CSS and XPath locator strategies to find the locators that won't break are really important. And managing your test data. You're going to have a lot of data to if you're populating forms, if you need to get a user account, maybe you need to access the database. All of that are things that you will need to know. And then creating and executing your automation strategy. What features are you going to automate first? What tools are you going to use to automate? How do you share that strategy with your team, with managers, and how do you get their support? As a QA engineer, that's something that you will need to be doing to be impactful in the organization. And then continuous integration has to do with tools like Jenkins, how you ensure that your test after you have created the automation is not just on your local machine and you run it whenever you feel like. If it is that you can schedule it to run in the morning or schedule it at a particular time of day where there are a lot of users and you want to check out something in particular, or you want to trigger it to be built once the developer merges into the main branch, then you can do that. But that's going to take some learning and becoming familiar with the different tools. And in order to do all of this, you have to know some form of object-oriented programming language, JavaScript, Java, Python, etc. There are a variety of other skills like performance testing, clean code practices, ensuring that you're using page objects, your tests are atomic and it's not being repeated all over the place, but you have specific functions that you can call to do one action. And learning mobile automation using Appium and other tools will help to increase the test coverage and how quickly you're able to do regression on a project. Now, I learned and increased the skills that I have as a QA engineer over time. So I'm able to use Git. I'm able to do a little bit of testing using Ruby. I am able to use Selenium, and I mostly use WebDriver IO now, but I know Java. I have done C and C sharp, and I now mostly use JavaScript. But as a QA engineer, I use all of those skills and being a hero and a champion for quality in the work that I do. I have been on projects where I have had to use APIs and databases to generate data before I start doing my UI test. These are all skills that I learned over time, but I really didn't start here. In fact, my first automated test project was with JavaScript. And well, it was with Java, but then I transitioned to using JavaScript. And it was a big transition for me. And I didn't really feel comfortable writing the code because I was paired with someone that had a lot more knowledge about JavaScript than I did. And at that time, ES6 came out and they came out with promises, and they started to touch down on the for loops and the ifs, and everything kind of changed around that time. So for me, it was a big step moving from Java to JavaScript. And so this was my first test automation that I wrote. This is about 2015. And I wrote this, and at the time I was like, okay, cool, I'm writing some code in JavaScript, and I was excited. But over time, after it was being run, it was very brittle. It wasn't really good. It was very basic. If you look here, you can see my locator strategy is so long, and I am looping through all the things, and I'm iterating, and it was just horrible. And I can say that is my work, but it wasn't really good. But I had to start somewhere, and I had to learn how to write better code, because no page objects, which is a really good practice that you should have, horrible locators, and I really didn't know JavaScript. So there were things that I was doing that in JavaScript I could have done it way easier or neater, and it could have been more readable. But because if you look here, it's hard to understand what I was doing. I was clicking, waiting for element, asserting something. This, I think, was in Nightwatch.js, and I then transitioned to using WebDriver IO. But I had to go through all of this to understand what I was trying to do. It wasn't very readable. All my locators it was just a single file thing that I was doing. So I had to go out and say, I need to be more impactful. I need to be a better QA engineer. So I learned JavaScript. And sure, I could have just gone and tried to learn the framework more, but I really didn't understand JavaScript. So I took it all the way back, and I started by learning JavaScript. I had some foundation object-oriented programming knowledge because I knew Java and I knew C at that time. So I knew how to write code, but I didn't know JavaScript and its nuances and all the different things that it had. So I had to go and learn that. For me in particular, I remember learning about Node. And there was this very catchy song that I would hear every time I was going to start a tutorial. And it would get me kind of hyped for listening and learning to it. So let me know if you can hear the song. I'm going to play the song, and you can let me know what you think about the song. I liked it, and it really got me hyped for learning.
I think that you're not sharing the sound of your computer.
Okay, let me stop and do that real quick. Wait, where do I find Zoom? Sound. Right, so let's go back.
Your online application's starting to fail. It's crawling on the network just as fast as a snail. We need invented programming starting from the top. Better write some code so the world doesn't stop. With the non-blocking model, we will be just fine. Built on Google Chrome's V8 runtime. And all you need to do is write some JavaScript code and use the real-time web with Node.
So that was the song. And that's just to say, I share this experience just to say that it doesn't matter where you currently are. You can start, and if you realize that there's some missing gaps or some missing pieces, you can go back because I was hired as a QA engineer. It was my very first job. I'm still working there 6 years later now, but was expected to know code. But there were certain things that I still didn't know about a specific language. And I had to roll it all the way back and start from the very beginning of learning a programming language and then build on top of that to be now where I am, where I have videos and blogs doing coding in JavaScript and using different frameworks. So just be open to learning and putting your building blocks together and building that solid foundation to being an impactful QA engineer. So how to build your QA engineer skills? The first thing that I want you to do is prepare a list of objectives, and that list of objectives is going to talk about what you want to learn. I'm going to go through a list of things that I think you should know as a QA engineer, and you can write down from that what you already know and what you don't know so that you can have an idea of what you're going to be going to learn. How are you going to tackle learning it? And by doing this, you will know that, okay, I need to maybe know JavaScript, or I already know JavaScript, but I haven't ever done test automation. So I maybe need to start learning Selenium WebDriver or Cypress. We just had a talk where we were comparing Selenium and Cypress. So wherever you are, write it down and then identify the gaps and how you can move forward. And the second thing is that you have to set realistic expectations. All of this took time, 6 years in, and I'm still learning. You have to give yourself that time and set smart goals and give yourself time to learn. So this time to learn is attending conferences or asking your work for maybe a Friday each month. Currently at Quality Works, we have workshops each Friday, each month on a Friday, and this is where we upskill ourselves and learn. So see how you can get training programs in your company and time and budget to train so that you can learn and use resources and mentors. I see Beth here. Beth is someone that is active on Twitter, sharing what she's learning. There is Angie Jones. There is Marie Drake. There are so many different communities. There is the testing community. There's Ministry of Testing. There's Test Automation University. There are so many resources and mentors out there that you can use to learn, and a lot of these are for free. There's some that is paid, but there's a lot of persons just tweeting out tips. They have blogs, etc., that you can use. And then finally, which really solidified a lot of concepts for me, was actually going on those projects and implementing all that I was learning. So see how you can get on different projects, or if your project don't have certain things in mind, see how you can introduce those different concepts, and you can create different portfolios to showcase how you work with different solutions. Now, the next thing that I want to go into is the roadmap of skills and techniques that I think a QA engineer should learn. And I've said this before, the first thing is that you cannot just jump, to me, that is, you cannot just jump straight into doing test automation without first knowing how to test. This impacts a lot of things and sets the foundation for you to be successful. There are different testing concepts that you will need to know about: how to do exploratory testing, how to do proper bug reporting, how to verify and validate, how to do boundary value analysis. All of those concepts are going to help you later on if you want to be doing test automation, because in test automation is one of the key things is identifying what you're going to be automating. So if you don't properly know the product, if you don't know how to test, if you don't know how your role fits in as a QA, then you're going to kind of not be as effective as you should be. So firstly, you need to have a foundation of being a tester, being able to use those skills. And if you want to learn more about Agile and all of that, you can read Agile Condensed by Janet Gregory and Lisa Crispin. You can also follow them on Twitter. They are very active, and they have a YouTube channel now. I'm subscribed to their newsletter, and they give talks all the time about how you can implement Agile, how you can become a really good team, and all the different testing concepts that you can learn for me, when I was starting out in particular, I did the ISTQB certification foundation, and I also did ISTQB Agile. A lot of persons may be against doing ISTQB, or you may be for it. It doesn't have to be ISTQB. It can be other courses that are out there that you can go and learn, but learn those foundation testing principles. They're very important. And then secondly, find your community to learn and share. There are 3 communities that I'm going to list and talk about here that have been very impactful for me in my growth. And I kind of found them late in the game, or late in my game. I discovered them last year, but in that year, they have helped to expand my tester mindset. They have helped me to think about different things and gain new perspectives and bring things back to work that I wasn't maybe doing before or doing as effectively. Test Guild is really great. That is led by Joe. They do a conference, they have podcasts, they have webinars, they have so much material that you can learn about anything testing related. And then Ministry of Testing, really great community. There is a sense of friendship. There's a sense of, even if you're starting out and you don't know anything, you won't be criticized or you won't be bashed. You're going to be welcomed. It's a place where you can go and learn. And then Test Automation University, it's as it says, all about test automation. This is led by Angie Jones, really a pioneer in everything test automation and how she goes about sharing her knowledge and her experiences. You should really check those 3 communities out. And I think for me, community helps you, especially if you're trying to learn, if you're hesitant about something, if you're unsure how to do something. I saw Beth doing a tweet about how you can go about being the only tester on your team. And there were so many answers from different persons in the community coming in, sharing how she can go about doing that, how she can, and they share their experiences so freely and with kindness. And it really has helped me, and I think it will help you in how you grow and become a better QA engineer. And then thirdly, start learning some skills, start learning some techniques. As I said, you need to learn some programming language. And when I say programming language, I mean learn about object-oriented programming, encapsulation, and all of those different techniques. And that will help you to set a very good foundation if you want to do test automation, which is an important part of the QA engineer role. And then these are some different persons that you can use to learn. So Angie Jones on Test Automation U has a really good Java programming course that you can take. It's free. Mark Texan also has a JavaScript course on Test Automation University that is really good and that you can learn from. There is Free Code Camp, there is Python courses, there is C courses, there is Ruby courses that is online that you can learn. All of these things that I have here are free resources that you can go about and learn. And then the fourth thing is I want you to move beyond just knowing how to code, but know best practices that is going to be relevant for test automation. Things such as page object model, how you separate your locators and certain functionalities from code that is going to verify and validate if the test has passed. You want to have those separate. You want to have clean code practices, such as keeping your tests small. Don't have them be the same thing, but you can have small atomic tests. And when we talk about small atomic tests, Nikolai comes to mind. He talks a lot about atomic tests and clean code practices that you can use. So Nikolai has 6 rules for high quality page object patterns. That is a really good article. Angie has a talk on, and at the end of this, I have a list of links. All the things that I'm talking about, I have links for them that I'm going to share in the chat at the end. Angie Jones has applying the pillars of object-oriented programming to test automation. She talks about how you can apply encapsulation and polymorphism in the concept of test automation. And I found that to be really good and really helped me And then Nikolai also talks about atomic test. Atomic test, I talk about it because it's really important and impactful as a QA engineer. It helps your test to be less flaky, which is really good. Your tests run much faster, and it just helps to improve the quality of work that you do. And then you want to identify testing frameworks that you want to use. So let's say you are working somewhere and they are using a particular framework that may push you towards learning that framework. The talk that was just given, he was comparing Selenium and Cypress. You need to also do a comparison to decide which testing framework you want to start using and get familiar with. But as he said in his talk, you shouldn't just stick to one framework. You can do a mix and match based on the different scenarios that you have. So I don't just know one framework. I've used Nightwatch, I've used Java with Selenium, I have used WebDriver IO. I'm learning how to use Cypress. There are so many different tools out there that can be useful. I also know CodeSet, which is a really good framework. So there are a lot of different frameworks out there. You can start with one, but look at your scenario, look at the company that you're working for. Maybe it's a job that you want to get. Maybe it's just something that you think you need to know, but identify why you're going to learn that framework and then start using it and get familiar with it. If you are interested in learning about WebDriver IO, I have a lot of content on it on my blog, juliapottinger.com. Test Automation University is a really great resource. They have a lot of different UI paths that you can use: Python, JavaScript, Java, C#, Ruby, doing API, because the API frameworks such as Rest Assured in Java is going to be different than if you're doing UI automation using TestNG and Maven and Selenium. So not just UI automation, but also API automation frameworks that you can use. Philip is someone that I follow on Twitter, and he's always talking about Cypress. So in learning Cypress, I'm going to go to his blog. He talks a lot about it. And then Water is a Ruby library for automating tests that you can check out. So there are a lot of different resources, and all of these resources are free and available that you can definitely go and check out to learn more. And then understand test automation strategies, what to automate, how to set up a test automation team. This is very important. So now you have learned all the foundation and all the basis, and your manager comes to you and say, we want to start implementing test automation. What's the first thing that you're going to do? You need to create a test automation strategy. And this test automation strategy is going to look at the different tools that you need, how we are going to structure the team. You're going to have a senior QA engineer. Are you going to have what amount of manual testers do you need, if any? Are you going to have developers writing the end-to-end code? Are they going to only be writing unit code? So learning all of those concepts and implementing them is really important. And you need to know what you're going to automate and identifying those proper cases that you should automate. And then we talk about creating a portfolio with web and mobile automation. Very important, not just web automation, mobile automation, and API and database automation, performance testing. Depending on where you want to specialize, you can look and see how you can go about creating those different portfolios. I use my blog as my portfolio and my YouTube channel as my portfolio to showcase all the different things that I know and to get practice on different scenarios that are out there. And then number 8, API testing. Really important that we know API testing and not just UI. API testing can aid your UI test. For example, if you want to set up some user using the API, or you want to delete some user and then just verify on the UI that the user has been deleted, you can. So the API testing has its place and it's really important. It's been talked about a lot right now, so there should be a lot of resources out there that you can use to learn about it. And then 9 and 10, these, I should also have included security testing here, but these are different types of testing. I have been on projects where I have had to create users and interact with the database a lot to verify different things on the UI end. So you can use the database as a source of truth in some cases, but it's important and it's very useful that as an impactful QA engineer, you understand SQL, you know how to create queries and use that in your test automation. And performance testing, there are different tools that you can use. You don't have to go deep dive into it if it's something that you're not interested in, but at least understanding what the benefits of it are so that you can advocate for it in your different organizations. And then 11 and 12, accessibility and usability testing along with continuous integration. I talked about these two skills before, but it's really important that you encourage your developers to code with accessibility and usability in mind. There are two persons that I would recommend you to follow if you're interested in learning more about accessibility and usability. That is Erin Hess. She has some really nice articles about accessibility testing tools. She gives talks on the topics. And then Scopic engineer Crystal, she's really a champion and an advocate for accessibility. And I have found a lot of things that she do to be really valuable and impactful in how I test and how I champion for accessibility. And then finally, but by no means the least, you need to have soft skills. Are you championing for diversity in your QA team? Diversity of thought, diversity of people. Everyone has different mindsets and everyone have different things that they're going to look for. For example, if you're walking on the street and you meet a stairs, someone in a wheelchair is going to encounter and perceive that stairs differently than someone that is walking on their 2 feet. So ensuring that you are empathetic and you listen to the opinion of others that have different lived experiences and apply that to your testing and ensure that the product that you're doing is accessible and available for everyone is really important. No, there is a quality engineering learning roadmap that goes really deep into a lot of things. I found this from Blake Norris. He is a really good, solid article that goes a lot further into all the different things that you should learn, including a lot more programming details and OP concepts. You can check this out as well. And just remember that one cocoa full basket, one cocoa full basket. This means that you can't need to just start. It's a lot of things that you have to learn, but I started somewhere, you are starting somewhere, you are at a different place. It's possible to learn all of these things. Just set yourself the goals and take your time and you will achieve them. These are the links I promised. I'm going to put them in the chat right now. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today to learn. And I hope that you learned a lot and that this was meaningful to you and you can take something from it. And let's stay connected on Twitter at iLoge876 and on LinkedIn. And you can follow my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Julia Pottinger. Thank you so much.